Hello and welcome to my weekly podcast. I'm Lorenza Braniff and this is the Sociological Corner. In today's podcast, I invited experts Marcela Sarro and Paola Cortés to talk about the question of why are millennials leaving organized religion and why is there an increase in religious disaffiliation? Marcela, would you care to tell us more about this topic?
Hi, Lorenza. It's a pleasure to be here. The growing progression towards adolescent disaffection of religion has become more important since this is the age group that will grow to determine the future of our societies.
So, if the politicization of religion and the trend towards secularization continues to grow, this will become a clear indicator of the ideology and the shift in the belief system that will take on Western societies.
Absolutely. In recent years, we see the younger generations drifting away from traditional views, a term most commonly known as religious disaffiliation. This concept has become crucial to our understanding of the social processes that determine the younger generations.
So, these younger generations are called the millennial generation. Paula, could you tell us more about the characteristics of this group?
Hi Lorenza, yes, millennials are a group characterized by the change in their belief and cultural systems. The growth in technology and a rising need for approval have turned young adults into confident and sometimes narcissistic beings, obsessed with speed and interconnectedness.
Wow, and could you tell us some research or studies that try to explain this phenomenon?
Sure, there are countless research studies that draw explanations for this phenomena. Recently, in 2012, Alan Downey conducted an experiment in which he sought to prove that the effect of internet use are highly associated with the concept of religious disengagement.
And, this could be one of the explanations that properly situates the question of millennial generations and the trend to leave organized religion. From 1990 to 2010, the fraction of people in the United States with no religious preference has increased from 8% to 18% based on data from the Central Social Survey. At the same time, the fraction of Protestants dropped from 62% to 51%.
Wow, these numbers are impressive. And what are the factors that could explain religious disaffiliation?
Well, there are many factors that could explain religious disaffiliation. Houghton and Fisher conducted a study about the causes of this phenomenon through key aspects such as political backlash and generational succession. They draw relationships from political ideologies, for example, liberal and conservative, and religious disaffiliation, claiming changes in politics and their conflict over cultural issues serve as a fundamental reason for this phenomenon. Other academics such as Philip Schwadl takes on this issue from an educational perspective. He understands that superior education promotes a tendency towards religious disaffiliation.
And what are the effects that education has on religious practices?
Although the idea that education has an effect on religious practices goes back to Durkheim and Weber, he takes this concept even further and argues that it is not only about levels of higher education as an independent concept. Higher education is a source of other cultural and social shifts that can be more closely associated with religious disaffiliation.
And regarding the millennial generation, what kinds of people integrate this generation?
The millennials are people that were born between 1981 and 1995. That means people between 20 and 35 years old.
Okay, and I asked you here to talk about the study that you're conducting. It's a study regarding this topic, and it's going to take place in Mexico. Could you talk more about the specific places where the study is going to be conducted?
Sure, it doesn't need to be a specific place. It will take place in universities, in family meetings, friends meetings, or wherever the opportunity is given. Our key processes are going to be testimonies, interviews, and surveys. It will help us to be specific and clear with the subject that we're treating. We will try to study all kinds of people, trying to cover all socio-economic classes that have at least a professional education.
Lorenza, when we were conducting our research for this study, we didn't come across a lot of information that could be applied to the context of Mexico City as opposed to the United States. So we decided to trace back to one of the most prominent sociologists, Emile Durkheim, on one of his latest works, The Elementary Forms of Religious Life, in which he approaches religion as a social fact which influences social life and interactions. Durkheim states religion as, and I quote, system of ideas which the individuals represent to themselves the society of which they are members, and the obscure but intimate relations which they have with it. So, in other words, religion can be seen as something bigger than the individual. It's not only about the belief, but about a set of symbols, practices, and traditions practiced by a community. And there are countless academics who have approached Durkheim's basic ideas, and Desfer and Applerouth attempt to explain that ritualization does not only have a religious purpose, but a social one. The process of ritualization can be seen as a completely secular set of actions with the intention of uniting a collective.
So, taking into consideration about what you said of the set of secular actions with the intentions of uniting collective, an example of such, taking a political context, can be a political rally in which individuals with similar political beliefs get together to listen to speakers that defend and promote their beliefs.
Absolutely. As seen with ritualization, symbolization can also be a secular act with the same intention of unity and identification. To this day, we give meanings to symbols which give us a sense of identity and belonging.
And moving this to a more contemporary context, it's important to note that as individuals, we deny to accept and refuse to see the importance we give to consumption goods. The fact that buying and using certain clothing, for example, ties us to a very specific community. It gives the individual an identity.
So, what you're saying is that through the processes of ritualization and symbolization, social relations are created and reaffirmed.
Exactly, which at the same time fulfill collective sentiments by unification and identification of the individual to a community.
And in your study, why are you taking interviews and testimonies and not having a conducted experiment?
We came to the conclusion that for this topic, conducting an experiment will result tedious and unfruitful. In order to make an accurate representation of the levels of religious disaffiliation in Mexico, we decided it was best to conduct interviews in order to obtain testimonies, as well as to make use of survey tools in order to perform a systematic study from which we can extract concrete statistics.
Of course, and as Paola said, this method of collecting information will help us to answer the main question in our study, which is why our youth is more and more skeptical regarding religion? What is behind the exhilarating rates of religious disaffiliation in Mexico?
Well, our time is up, but thank you very much for your time, and I'm really eager to read your full study, and we'll be in contact. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lorenza.